In this video, I will show you how to build this budget spreadsheet step by step. We will be making different tables and charts as well as applying fun formatting so that every month you can copy this template and use it to manage your money with ease. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. So let's get started with building our budget template. So the first thing you want to do, you want to open a new spreadsheet. And once you have done that, let's change the title to budget template. Now I'm also going to change the name of the sheet to budget. And as we did in the first lesson, let's prep our worksheet. So let's close this thing. First, select your font. My favorite one is Century Gothic, so I'm going with that one. I'm decreasing the font size to 8. I'm centering horizontally, and vertically I am putting everything in the middle. So that was our worksheet prep. The second thing, add your theme. So I am going to add my own. Of course, if you like the colors that I'm using, you can use the same hex codes as I have here. But I invite you to use your own if you have colors that you really love. Either you have created them yourself or you use the colors website that we talked about in the first module of this course. So now I am just changing all these accent colors to the ones that fit my aesthetic and theme. Click done. Close, and now we have set up the theme for the entire spreadsheet. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a title. So I'm going to merge these 9 cells. I always make the A column smaller and I just leave it blank. That is just my personal style preference. You can add the title in the A column as well, but I usually just leave it blank. And here I am just changing the font to Sacramento, which is one of my favorite handwritten fonts, and I'm increasing the size to 35, so it's just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make these rows wider to accommodate the size of the title, and now it looks pretty good. Now I'm going to merge these cells in the 4th row, and I'm just going to write a little subtitle, budget dashboard, and I'm going to change the font again to Lexend. Now I'm merging these 6 cells to write the title for our first table, which is going to be an overview table. I increase the size to 10 just so it's a little bit bigger. And at the bottom, let's add the titles for our columns. So here I want the month. So actually I want the top title, so where we have the month, to change automatically based on the data validation dropdown that we're going to insert over here. So I wanted to change depending on which month we select in this cell C8. So let's create this data validation rule by going to data validation. Let's add a new rule. And here I am going to add all the months in a year. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. And also I'm going to change the style, the display style, to arrow because that fits my style better than the chip, but you can leave it as a chip if you prefer that better. And now I'm going to select the month here. And now I'm going to link this cell with cell C8. Now, for example, as I choose a different month, the title changes automatically. The next thing that I want to create in the overview table is the balance that I have in my account and either my other account or my partner's account. So this budget template is perfect for sharing with another person that you're living with, and you can create as many account rows as you like. I'm just sticking with 2, and here I'm just adding the balances for each account. Or you can use this budget template personally, not share it with anyone, just add all of the balances that you have across multiple accounts. So it's perfect for sharing or using personally. Here I'm just formatting the numbers as currencies. So now I'm actually going to do a little bit of formatting. I'm going to add some filling to the overview table. Let's now work on our second table. So let's merge these 6 cells and write summary. So this is going to be our summary table. I am again increasing the size to 12, and now let's add titles for this table. Name, budget, and actual. And as for names, I want the summary to summarize my income, my bills and expenses together, add savings, debt, and also a leftover row. Now I'm going to add my formatting to this table. I'm going to actually change this to this light gray. And I'm going to add the same gray to the names of the columns, and I'm going to add the same to this last leftover row. Okay, so for now, let's leave these blank because we will be able to add the formulas here once we have everything already set up in the spreadsheet. Now let's work on the next table, which is going to be the income table. I'm again increasing the size to 12 and adding the titles: name, expected, and actual. I will leave space, I think, for 5 income categories. This is all a fictional example that I'm doing here, but I think if you're creating this budget template for yourself, just adjust it to how many paychecks or how many categories you need. So I'm just adding some filling to the titles, to the first and the last row in this table, just so the formatting is coherent across the entire sheet. So now I'm already adding some fictional numbers in the expected column. I always find that adding fictional numbers really helps with creating formulas and understanding if things work. Here I'm just summing up the expected column, and I'm going to drag the formula across to the actual column as well. And I changed the formatting to a currency. Now let's create our fourth table, which is going to be savings. Again, I am already formatting the title and changing the font size to 12, adding a filling from my theme, and this time the titles are going to be name, budget, and actual. So I'm adding an emergency fund, traveling fund, and car maintenance fund. I'm formatting the first and last row the same as for the previous tables, and I'm adding these fictional numbers and then summing them together using the sum formula. Here again, I am changing the formatting to a currency. So that is it for the savings table, and I'm going to build my next table over here. I'm just counting how many columns I need in this table, and it's going to be a bills table. So now let's change the font size to 12. As for the rest of them, I'm making the first column narrow because that is where we're going to have tick boxes. So I'm making it very narrow. And here, let's add our titles. The first title is in a merged cell, name. The second one is due. Third is budget. And fourth is actual. I'm going to now add filling to my title. And I'm going to also format the titles of the columns. I'm kind of building a Tetris from my tables. I always want them to kind of fit together perfectly, so there are no random white spaces. So now let's insert tick boxes. I am actually going to change the color of these tick boxes. To change the color, you just have to highlight the column and go to font color and pick the color that you want. And as for the due date, I'm just going to write a number instead of a full date. That's why I made this column very, very narrow. I'm just adding the day of the month. So now I'm just summing together the budget and actual column, and I'm going to format it as a currency. Now, as I tick the boxes, I actually want them to be strike through. So let's go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and select Custom Formula Is, write an equal sign, and write F15 because that is the first cell where we have our tick box, and it has to be equal to true. And remember to add a $sign in front of the F cell. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. No filling, but strike through. So now let's work on our next table, which is the expenses table. So this is going to be for expenses. Let's merge these 8 cells, add our title, make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to add filling that matches with my theme. And as for the titles, it's name, budget, actual, and left. And here at the bottom, I'm also adding the total, and I'm going to add some formula for the budget and drag it so it applies to the actual column as well. Now I'm going to format these amounts as currencies, and for the left column, I want to subtract the actual amount from budget. So let's drag this formula for the rest of the cells. And here's the thing, you can leave this as is if you don't mind the zeros, but actually I don't want to see zeros if I don't have a category for it. I don't want to see these zeros. I just want there to be blank cells. So to achieve this, let's use an if formula, open the bracket. So if this is equal to 0, I want there to be a blank cell. So it's 2 quote marks. If not, I just want it to be the difference between the budget and actual. Now I'm going to drag the formula down, and as you can see, the zeros disappeared, and that is exactly what I wanted to achieve. So now let's work on our next table, which is going to be a debt table, and it's going to be the same style as our bills table. So let's copy the bills table and paste it next to expenses. And now let's rename it to debt. And as you can see, once we remove tick boxes, the strike through feature didn't disappear. That is because the debt table is still linked with the bills table, which we don't want. So be very careful when copy and pasting tables with some conditional formatting, because that is going to happen. So what we need to do instead, we have to click inside here, go to our existing conditional formatting rule and remove this table from here, because we don't want to apply the same formatting from our bills table to the debt table. Otherwise, when we strike through something in the bills table, it's going to apply to the debt table, which is something we don't want. We need to create a new rule, a new conditional formatting rule for the strike through. So let's write an equal sign, choose this cell where we have the first tick box. Remember to add a $sign, Q15 equals to true. So I'm going to remove this filling, choose strike through, click done, close, and now as we tick these boxes, we will get a strike through formatting. Now we need to create the expense tracker that is going to be linked with this expenses table. If we were to do things manually, we would have to sum up our expenses this way, but to make our life easier, we need to create an expense tracker for this, where we can log all of our transactions for our expenses. So I'm going to create it at the bottom here. Again, I'm trying to create a Tetris effect where I am trying not to leave any white spaces. So that's why the expense tracker is going to be so huge. I am adding a title, changing the font size, and adding this filling. And for this first column, I am going to add a date. For the second column, it's amount. And now I am going to merge these 3 cells together. It's going to be for category. And the rest of the space is going to be for notes. For the date column, I want to add some custom formatting. Oh, before doing this, let's actually add a date is valid rule, and I'm just going to leave it at show a warning. What I wanted with this is for the mini calendar to pop out when I double click on the cell. Now that we have done that, let's format it in a way that fits the aesthetic we want. So let's go to format, custom date and time. And I am going to choose this one. That is my favorite, but you can play around with the formatting to find the one that you like. And now as you double click on the cells, you will be able to choose the date. And you can also write the date manually, and this is something you have to do on your tablet or phone because the double clicking feature or the mini calendar feature is not going to work on a tablet or phone. And as for the category, as you can see, we have a merged cell here, so we need to merge the rest of the cells that we have under category. And to do that, let's highlight this entire column. Go to merge and merge horizontally. And now I want to create a drop down of all the expense categories I have in this table. So I don't have to write them manually, I can just pick and choose. So let's highlight the category column, go to data, data validation, add a rule, and here select drop down from a range. And here click inside, choose select data range, move this a little bit out of the way. Now click inside and highlight this column. Click OK. Now on the right hand side, we can see all of the categories have showed up, but I'm just going to choose the display style as arrow. Click done, close this. And now when you click here, you can see that all of the categories are here that you can pick from. And as you add more categories in the expenses table, they will also show up here, or if you delete some categories, they will disappear from this drop-down list automatically. And as for notes, again here, I have to merge all of these cells together under notes. So I'm going to do the same thing as for a category. I'm going to highlight this and choose merge horizontally. Now let's move back to the actual column of our expenses table. And here we want to insert a formula that is going to sum up all of the amounts that are within the same category. So for example, I want these groceries to be summed up automatically in this table. So let's start by writing an equal sign, sum if our range is going to be over here. So this category column, and our criterion is groceries. And our sum range is this amount column. Let's close the bracket, hit enter, and now we get our result. Now let's try to drag the formula down. So as you can see, we forgot to do one thing because the range moved down as we drag the formula down. We forgot to add dollar signs to fix the ranges in place. So I'm just using the shortcut FN F4 or F4 on Windows computers, so the ranges stick in one place so they don't move as we drag the formulas down. So now everything is correct, but the thing is that I don't want to see these zeros. So again, I'm adding an if formula. So if this is equal to 0, I want it to be a blank cell. If not, I just want the formula to be executed and show me the result. Let's close this bracket. Now again, let's pull this formula down. And now as you can see, the zeros have disappeared and we get this beautiful result. And I just noticed that I haven't changed the formatting to the currency here, so I'm just going to do that. Okay, so looking at these numbers, you can see that we have overspent our budget in some places. You can see that where we have the minus sign. So actually I want to highlight those numbers. I want to see the categories where we have overspent. So let's go to conditional formatting to do this. Over here, let's choose if it is less than 0. Then I want to highlight these numbers so I can see for which categories I have overspent the budget and learn from that for the following months. So now again, using the Tetris mindset, we have this white space that I'm going to fill with some financial goals and a wish list. So let's merge these cells, add a title, add some filling, and over here I'm going to add some tick boxes. So until 67th row I'm adding tick boxes, and I am going to make the color the same as the title, and over here I'm just going to merge these cells. So again, I'm going to highlight these and merge horizontally. And again, for example, here I am ticking the boxes and I would like the goals to be striked through. So let's highlight them. Go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and here choose Custom Formula Is, write an equal sign, and write the cell where the first tick box is located. So remember to write a $sign first. For me, it's Q43, and it has to be equal to true. I'm removing the filling and choosing the strike through option. And now as we tick the boxes, the goals are beautifully striked through. So at the bottom here, we have this white space. I don't want to leave it like that. I'm going to create a little wish list table. So I'm just going to copy the formatting, add a new title. Over here, again, I am inserting tick boxes. I'm going to add the same color I have for my title, and I'm going to merge these cells horizontally. And now again, I want the wish list to be strike through when I buy it or achieve it. So let's go to conditional formatting. Custom formula is equal. So there we have to add a $sign equal to Q71, where we have the first tick box in this table. It has to be true. Again, removing filling and adding the strike through formatting, and that is it. Now we are moving on to creating charts for our spreadsheet. Okay, so I am merging cells here and adding a title. I'm changing the font to Legend. And here I'm going to create a chart that's going to show me how much I have still left to budget. Over this expenses table, I'm going to create a chart that is going to show me what was my budget and how much I actually spent. And over this debt table, I want to have a chart that will show me how much I have still left to spend. First, let's complete this summary table that we left blank at the beginning. So I'm just going to link the income budget cell with total expected income. And over here, I'm going to sum up the budget for bills and expenses, the total budget for bills and expenses. Here I'm linking it with the total savings and total debt. Now we have all of these. I'm just going to highlight them and drag them across, and it's going to reference the correct cells for all of our actual numbers as well. So our total actual savings, actual debt, actual bills and expenses, and actual income for the month. So here I actually want to see how much I have still left to budget and how much I have left to spend. So to do this, to see how much we have left to budget, let's sum up what we have in our accounts and sum up how much we budgeted for our income and subtract how much we budgeted for bills and expenses, savings, and debt payments. And now we can see how much we have still left to budget based on all of the information we have available in the spreadsheet. Let's do the same thing for actual numbers. Let's sum up how much we have in our accounts, sum up our actual income, and subtract the actual bills and expenses, savings, and debt payments. And now we can see here how much we have left to spend. Now we need to create some hidden data that we're not actually going to see. We're going to hide it because it's not very important for us to see this information. So let's sum up what we have in our accounts, sum up our income, and subtract what is left to budget. By using this formula, we will see how much we have actually budgeted based on the information we have in the spreadsheet. And now let's do the same for the actual numbers, sum up the accounts, sum up actual income, and subtract how much we have left to spend. And this way we can find out how much we have spent. So now let's merge these all cells together for our chart. And let's link this big cell with how much we have left to budget cell. Let's increase the size a little bit. I'm going to increase it to 14. I'm going to do the same thing to the left to spend chart, merge it, link it with the left to spend cell, increase the size to 14. And this is the data we're going to see behind our pie charts. So it's very useful to see the number at the very top of how much we have left to budget and how much we have left to spend. Now let's highlight these two cells and insert a chart. We automatically get a pie chart. Let's fit it to the space that we have allocated for our chart. I'm going to delete the title. I'm going to click inside this chart. And over here, I'm going to change the pie chart style to a donut chart. So we have this hole in the middle through which we can see the number. And for customization, it's very important here to remove the background color. Otherwise, we will not be able to see the number. I'm also removing the border color. I'm making the donut hole bigger so we can see the entire number. And I'm changing the pie slice color is going to be this green color, and slice 2 is going to be this gray color. So the gray color represents how much we have already budgeted, and the green color represents how much we have left to budget. So now as we click inside, we can also see these numbers. So when we click on the green, it shows how much we have left to budget, and the gray shows us how much we have already budgeted. And the proportions are going to change as we change the data inside our spreadsheet. So now let's highlight these two cells, insert a chart. We get this one automatically. Let's fit it inside this space. I'm going to remove the title because I don't need it. And now I'm going to remove the background color, remove border color. And as for setup, I'm going to change the chart style to a donut chart and increasing the donut hole to 75%. So the same thing as we did for left to budget. I'm going to add this color for left to spend and light gray for how much we have already spent. So now we don't actually need to see these cells anymore. So let's hide them by simply making them white. Very simple way how to hide data that you don't want to see, but still the charts are going to work fine. I'm actually going to change the color to this pink one for this chart. So now let's create our budget versus actual chart, which is going to depend on the summary table. Let's highlight the data inside it and go to Insert, Chart, and this is what we are going to get. I'm going to merge this as well, and I'm going to fit this table inside this cell. I'm going to remove these titles by clicking backspace. I'm going to remove these. I'm going to remove this. Now I'm going to change the style to a bar chart. So this one, and I'm going to remove the background color. I'm going to remove the chart border color as well for this chart. And I'm actually going to use this maximize option because I think it looks pretty good. So this is what it does. It kind of merges the labels together with the bars of the chart. So here I'm also decreasing the label size to 10 for both the amounts and the titles. And actually, I think I want to delete these titles, but basically to delete any sort of label, you have to go to grid lines and ticks, remove this, and here you have to change it to none. And now it's going to show up with no amounts. Again, this is a personal preference. I remove these amounts because I can just click inside the chart and see the amounts. But if you want to leave them, just ignore the step that I just did and leave the amounts as is, because some people do want to see the amounts. I sometimes remove them, I sometimes leave them. I decided to remove them for this tutorial. And now I'm going to change the colors, both the fill color and line color for the budget bars. And I'm going to customize the actual spending bars as well. So you have to change the fill color and the line color, both of them. So I'm going to add different colors for each. So I'm adding this dark green for income, light green for bills and expenses. For savings, I'm going to go with this light pink. and change the line color as well. Click inside the debt bar, change it to a pink one. We are now done with our tables. Let's remove grid lines by going to View, Show, and untick grid lines. And now we have removed our grid lines and it looks a little bit unfinished. That's because we haven't added our borders yet. So let's do that now. Let's highlight this table first, go to borders. I'm going to pick, I think, this dark green, and I'm going to choose the outline option. And for the inner borders, I'm going to go with the dotted option like this. I'm going to do the same for the rest of the tables. So let's do that for the summary table. Let's add an outline. Oops, that added a dotted line, not what I wanted. Okay, click outside, click inside, and add the dotted inside borders. So over here, as you can see, I don't really want there to be a line separating the tick box and the name. So I'm just going to remove the color and choose left border, and that removes the border that separates the tick boxes and the names. So I'm going to do the same thing for the debt table, and voila. We still have to add some borders to our charts, so let's do that now. Let's add some borders to the charts as well, so they're not just floating in the air. So I'm choosing this green one, outlining it, doing the same for this one, and same for this one. So now we are done. We're done with the budget template. We have successfully made our first big project together. So if you did this entire video together with me, thank you. I mean, you're amazing.